What if I told you that 4,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians discovered the secret to defeating death itself? What if everything you thought you knew about the afterlife was just the beginning of humanity's most extraordinary journey beyond the grave? Welcome to a world where death was not an ending, but a transformation, where kings and commoners alike prepared for the most important exam of their existence. This is the story of ancient Egypt's afterlife, a belief system so powerful it shaped an entire civilization for over 3,000 years. Close your eyes and imagine this. You are not just one person, but three different aspects of existence living in harmony. The ancient Egyptians believed every human possessed three distinct souls, each with its own destiny after death. First, there was the Ka, your life force, your spiritual double. Picture it as your eternal twin, created at the moment of your birth, waiting patiently for reunion in death. The Ka needed food, drink, and shelter, which is why tombs were filled with provisions for eternity. Then came the Be, your personality, your individual character that made you you. Depicted as a human-headed bird, the Ba could travel between the world of the living and the dead. It was free to roam, to visit loved ones, to experience the world beyond the tomb. Finally, the Ak, the transformed, glorified spirit that achieved immortality. This was your ultimate goal, your spiritual graduation ceremony. Only by successfully uniting the Ka and Ba could you become an Ak, a blessed and effective spirit in the afterlife. My grandmother still talks about dreams where her deceased husband visits her. She says his spirit never truly left. Maybe our ancestors understood something we've forgotten. Every evening, as the sun died in the western sky, the ancient Egyptians witnessed the daily rehearsal of death and rebirth. The sun god Ra's journey through the underworld became the template for every human soul's after-death adventure. The Duat, the Egyptian underworld, wasn't a single destination, but an entire landscape of trials, dangers, and wonders. Imagine navigating through 12 houses, each representing an hour of the night, each filled with monsters, guardians, and tests of worthiness. Lakes of fire that could incinerate the unworthy, serpents larger than mountains, gatekeepers with secret names that must be spoken correctly or face eternal destruction. This wasn't a journey for the faint-hearted. But the Egyptians were master planners. They created the ultimate survival guide, the Book of the Dead. Not actually a single book, but a collection of over 200 spells, incantations, and instructions for navigating the afterlife. Think of it as the world's first GPS system for the soul. After navigating the dangerous underworld, every soul faced the ultimate moment of truth. In the Hall of Two Truths, before 42 judges representing Egypt's gnomes, the deceased would face the most important trial of their existence. Picture this scene: your heart, the seat of your conscience and moral character, placed on one side of a golden scale. On the other side, the feather of Mot, representing truth, justice, and cosmic order. The god Thoth, with his ibis head and reed pen, ready to record the verdict. If your heart was lighter than the feather, if you had lived a life of truth and righteousness, you would proceed to eternal paradise. But if your heart was heavy with sin, Ammit, the soul leader, part crocodile, part lion, part hippopotamus, would devour your heart. This wasn't just death. This was complete annihilation, the second death from which there was no return. The concept of accountability after death remains central to our beliefs today. The ancient Egyptians understood that our actions in this life determine our fate in the next, a truth that transcends time and religion. What if I told you that the ancient Egyptians developed preservation techniques so advanced that modern science is still studying their methods? Mummification wasn't just a religious ritual, it was revolutionary biotechnology. The process took exactly 70 days, the time it took for the star Sirius to disappear and reappear in the sky. First, the brain was removed through the nose using bronze hooks. The ancient Egyptians believed the heart, not the brain, was the center of intelligence and emotion. Every organ was carefully removed, preserved in canopic jars, guarded by the four sons of Horus. The liver protected by Imsidi, the lungs by Hapi, the stomach by Duamutef, and the intestines by Kebesenuf. Only the heart remained, needed for the final judgment. The body was then covered in natron, a natural salt that drew out all moisture. For 40 days, it lay buried in this ancient desiccant, transforming flesh into something closer to leather than decay. The wrapping alone required over 400 yards of linen strips, each bandage treated with resins and oils. Protective amulets were placed between the layers, the golden scarab over the heart, the eye of Horus for protection, the ankh for eternal life. We found mummies with their fingerprints still intact after 3,000 years. Their preservation techniques were so advanced that some mummies are better preserved than bodies from just 100 years ago. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, wasn't just a tomb. It was a machine for resurrection, a cosmic elevator designed to transport the pharaoh's soul to the stars. Every measurement, every angle, every passage was calculated with astronomical precision. The king's chamber aligned with the constellation Orion, which the Egyptians associated with Osiris. The queen's chamber pointed to Sirius, linked to the goddess Isis. But the afterlife wasn't exclusive to royalty. Recent excavations have revealed that even the pyramid builders, the workers who died constructing these monuments, were buried with care, their tombs filled with bread, beer, and onions for their journey to the afterlife. As pyramid building declined, pharaohs chose the Valley of the Kings, where tombs were carved deep into the sacred mountain. These underground palaces were decorated with detailed maps of the afterlife journey, complete with instruction manuals painted on the walls. When Howard Carter first peered into Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 and saw wonderful things, he was looking at the most complete survival kit for the afterlife ever discovered. Golden chariots for celestial travel, 413 servant figures called shabdis to work in the afterlife fields, even underwear for the eternal wardrobe. Walk through Cairo today, and you'll discover that ancient beliefs haven't simply disappeared. They've evolved, adapted, and found new expressions in modern Egyptian culture. Every Thursday, Egyptian families visit cemeteries not just to mourn, but to maintain connections with the dead. They bring food, sometimes even have picnics beside graves, believing their loved ones can still participate in family life. My great-grandfather's spirit still protects our family. We feel his presence during difficult times. Death doesn't end relationships. It changes them. In Sufi ceremonies, answers whirl to achieve spiritual transformation, echoing ancient Egyptian beliefs about the soul's journey to divine unity. The circular motion represents the soul's path through different states of consciousness. Egyptian artists today still incorporate ancient symbols, the ankh, the eye of Horus, scarab beetles, into modern works. These aren't mere decorations, but living symbols that continue to carry spiritual meaning. As we stand beside the same Nile River that nourished Egyptian civilization for millennia, we face the same fundamental questions that drove their entire culture. What happens when we die? Is consciousness simply extinguished, or does something of us continue? Modern neuroscience studies consciousness, but we still can't fully explain what it is, or where it goes when the brain stops functioning. The ancient Egyptians approached these mysteries through spirituality and ritual. Perhaps their insights complement our scientific understanding. Every year, new discoveries reveal more about Egyptian afterlife beliefs. Recently discovered tombs show that these beliefs evolved over time, adapted to new circumstances, incorporated foreign influences, yet maintained their essential core. Our ancestors understood that death gives meaning to life. By preparing for eternity, they learned to live more purposefully, more ethically, more connected to something greater than themselves. In a profound sense, the ancient Egyptians achieved their goal of immortality. Their mummies rest in climate-controlled museums, visited by millions. Their names are spoken daily by tour guides and scholars. Their stories inspire movies, books, and documentaries. Every child who learns about Tutankhamun, every tourist who marvels at the Sphinx, every archaeologist who carefully excavates a tomb is participating in the Egyptian vision of eternal life. They live on through memory, through cultural impact, through the enduring power of their ideas. Modern DNA analysis reveals that many contemporary Egyptians are direct descendants of ancient Egyptians. The bloodline continues, carrying genetic memories of a civilization that refused to accept death as final. What can we learn from a civilization that spent so much energy preparing for death? Perhaps that by contemplating mortality, we learn to live more fully. By considering our legacy, we make better choices in the present. The Egyptians understood cyclical time, the annual Nile flood, the daily journey of the sun, the seasonal stars. They saw death not as an ending, but as part of an eternal cycle of renewal and transformation. Today's Egyptians still understand this cyclical nature of existence. They name children after deceased relatives, maintaining family continuity across generations. They preserve old photographs, tell ancestral stories, maintain family recipes, all forms of immortality. Under the same stars that guided ancient Egyptian souls through the afterlife, we continue to grapple with the same eternal questions. What is consciousness? What survives physical death? What gives life meaning? The ancient Egyptians created one of history's most elaborate answers to these questions. They built monuments that have lasted 4,500 years, developed preservation techniques that kept human tissue intact for millennia, and created belief systems that continue to influence human thought. Whether their specific beliefs about the afterlife were correct may be less important than their central insight that preparing for death helps us live better lives, that considering eternity gives meaning to mortality, and that our actions in this world echo into whatever comes next. The ancient Egyptian quest for immortality succeeded in ways they never imagined. They live on not just in their carefully preserved mummies, but in every human who has ever wondered what lies beyond death, who has ever sought to leave a meaningful legacy, who has ever believed that consciousness might transcend physical existence. In this child's curiosity about her ancestors, in the enduring fascination with Egyptian mysteries, in the continued relevance of their spiritual insights, the ancient Egyptians achieved their ultimate goal. They defeated death not through mummification, but through the immortality of ideas, the eternity of influence, and the endless human quest to understand what it means to be truly alive. The journey through the afterlife begins not with death, but with how we choose to live. The ancient Egyptians understood this truth 4,000 years ago. The question is, what will you do with your one precious life?